can't believe I'm here, playing for my life tonight.
I can't believe I'm here, I made it, I'm playing for my life tonight. I'm a shining light. I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm here. Playing for our life tonight. Yeah, I'm playing for our life tonight.
Welcome to Kingdom Driven Sports Friends. I'm your host, Kevin, and I appreciate you joining me today. This video is going to be me picking my Week 3 winners in the NFL and hoping that I do better than in Week 1 and Week 2. But I'm so glad that you joined me today. I'm going to give a little bit of input in some of these matchups and hope that, again, I can improve my record from the first 2 weeks. But I wanted to start off real quick. As you can see, I got my RE20 back. I don't think I mentioned that the old one that I had, the RE20, just stopped working for whatever reason, which is not something that usually happens. These are the industry standard for broadcast mics and podcasting. This and the Shure SM7B, those are really the ones that you see a lot of. But I was able to take it to Sweetwater here in Fort Wayne. If you ever have any audio, music, visual, the camera and stuff needs, they are the people to see, contact. You can visit their website at sweetwater.com. I'm not getting paid to say this. I just wanted to share because they are great, and they were able to replace my RE20 with a new one, and I'm glad to have it back. I loved using the SC Electronics, one of my favorite companies. SC Electronics Dynacaster, and we'll be using that. Actually, me and a friend are going to be starting a new podcast. I don't want to relay too much information at this time, but we're working on it. And so I wanted to get a mic that would be able to meet the quality and standards of the RE20. And so I invested in the Dynacaster, and I'll be using the RE20. And my friend Gavin, he'll be using the Dynacaster. And so I just wanted to give a little bit of a heads up to let you know that there is a project in the works, and we're super excited about it. Of course, it's Christ-based, and so looking forward to that. But if you were wondering why I switched mics for the past few videos, that's why I had to take the RE20 to the shop and at Sweetwater. And again, they were awesome, great. They've always been great with me and helping me with whatever needs I have when it comes to my equipment, and some of the best people to work with. So if you have any audio equipment, music equipment, instruments, cameras, anything up that alley that you need help with, contact them. They'll be more than happy to help you. And again, I'm not getting paid to say this. I just love their company so much because of how helpful they are and all the things they have to offer. But anyways, here we go, back with the RE20, and now back to the actual content of the video, which is my Week 3 picks for this week in the NFL game. So we're going to start with the matchup between the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills, which will take place Thursday night. And dude, Miami seems to be in disarray. Buffalo's owned Miami for a while now. They've, I think, won the last 6 matchups, and I forget how many home matchups Buffalo has won over Miami. I don't remember the number; it doesn't come to my head. But I have Buffalo steamrolling them 31-17. Buffalo's 12.5 point favorites, and yeah, especially seeing after the game this past week against the Patriots, seeing that press conference by Miami's head coach Mike McDaniels, that didn't instill any confidence in me that Miami is anywhere near being a contender. I think they are definitely, like I said, in disarray with how well run Buffalo is. I think, again, Buffalo is just going to steamroll them. So again, my prediction for that game is Miami 17, Buffalo 31, with Buffalo extending their win streak over the Miami Dolphins in the AFC East. Then we have our Sunday 1 o'clock games. We're going to start with the New York Jets versus Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is a 6.5 point favorite. Justin Fields is in concussion protocol, so he will not be playing in this game. Even if he was, I think I'd still choose Tampa. I'm choosing Tampa Bay to win because, again, I know I've said this in a few of the videos before, but Baker Mayfield I don't think he gets enough credit for how well he plays. And even though some might say he's more of a game manager, I think he makes a big plays when he needs to. And so I just think they're going to win this game. They're going to start 3-0, and I just have full confidence in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win that division. The final score I have is 28-20, so they cover that 6.5-point spread. But with the New York Jets not having Justin Fields, nothing against Tyrod Taylor, he's a great backup. But after what happened last week against Buffalo, I'm taking Tampa Bay. The next game is Indianapolis versus Tennessee. Indianapolis is 3.5-point favorites. Now, if you remember last week, the Colts were able to get a last-second win over the Broncos, the Donkeys, which was awesome. And I enjoy that thoroughly because, again, if you haven't heard me say it enough, I can't stand the Broncos. If they never win again, it'd still be too soon. Yada, yada, yada. But Indianapolis, they are 3.5-point favorites over Tennessee. And I do think they cover that. Just think, like I said in my previous video, that Tennessee is going through a rebuild. Cam Ward, he is a rookie, is still learning the game, realizing the speed of the game. And so I think because the Colts are actually surprising people and playing very well, and Tennessee's in that growing pain stage and still a few pieces away, I think Indianapolis does win 28-24. Only reason I have it that close is because it's a divisional game. And I think, again, divisional games can be tricky. Not always. I said that about the Baltimore Cleveland game, and that got out of hand. More so towards the fourth quarter, I believe it was. But a lot of times, though, most of the times, those games within your division with other division teams tend to be tougher to win just because you play them twice every single year. After that is the Las Vegas Raiders versus the Washington Redskins. Washington is 3.5-point favorites. I'm a little concerned with the Commanders. I had expected them to have a better showing against the Packers. I don't know if that is so much that the Commanders aren't at the level of the Packers at this point, or if they're just having a down year. But I actually had the Raiders winning this 28-27. I think I often wonder with quarterbacks that have, especially rookie quarterbacks that have a good year, if that sophomore year there's a bit of a slump because defenses start to figure your playing style out. And I'm wondering if that's something that's happening. I'm not trying to take anything away from Jaden Daniels because Jaden Daniels is a great young quarterback. I think his future is bright. And I think he'll have Washington competing for NFC titles for a while, or at least playoff runs for a while. But this year, there does seem to be a little bit of a regression. And so I'm interested to see how they do in this game against Las Vegas, who just came off a loss to the Chargers. An embarrassing loss, really. One of Geno Smith's worst games since... It reminded me of the Geno Smith when he was with the Jets. But I'm going to pick the Raiders in this one just because I have a little bit more faith in them. I don't know if it's Pete Carroll or if I just think they're going to bounce back, but I have a little bit more faith in them than I do the Commanders at this point, especially because of some of the injuries that the Commanders are facing. I know Austin Eckler is out with the Achilles tear, which is unfortunate, and that is one of the worst injuries you can get because it puts you out for so long, right? And so he's definitely out for the year. And Daniels, too, Jaden Daniels, he's injured as well. He's not at 100%. So I'm interested to see how Washington handles this adversity, as well as the Raiders. I want to see how they do coming off a loss. If Geno can bounce back and have a good game, I'm leaning towards that, which is why I picked them to win in this game, 28-27. Next, this might be the game of the week, although I don't know, the Monday Nighter. The Monday Nighter is going to be fantastic, but this is going to be a good one as well. It is the LA Rams versus the Philadelphia Eagles. And if you don't remember, in the playoffs this past year when Philadelphia won the Super Bowl, the Rams came very close to knocking them out. The Rams played them really well. I'm expecting the same thing. Now, I think they're in a better position to exact their revenge on the Eagles than the Chiefs were. And I think they do that. I think the Rams actually beat the Philadelphia Eagles, even though the Eagles are 3.5-point favorites. And I think they beat them 32-26. And they exact a little bit of revenge. It's not quite as satisfying as beating them in the playoffs. But who knows? These two teams may face each other in the playoffs this year. But I do think the LA Rams are going to be able to get the victory from Philadelphia. Although this will be another test for Nick Sirianni and the Eagles to see if they can continue to show that championship caliber team that they are. And they're a great team, top to bottom, probably the best roster in all of football. And so we'll see, they've responded well to adversity so far. So we'll see. In this game, I'm sure there will be adversity that they'll have to face. We'll see if they're able to answer the call again, or if the Rams will be able to come out with a victory and exact a little bit of revenge from that playoff loss. The next game is an AFC South divisional matchup between the Houston Texans and the Jacksonville Jaguars, where the Jaguars are 1.5-point favorites. I'm going to take Houston on this. I was actually impressed that they went toe-to-toe with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think Houston finally gets on track and they are able to win this game against Jacksonville. I think they win it in a close one, 26-23. And I really am thinking that CJ Stroud is going to have a good game and show flashes of what he looked like a couple years ago, where I believe he won the Rookie Offensive Player of the Year and put up some great numbers. So I'm hoping that I'm not really like CJ Stroud. He's a good kid and a good quarterback. So I'm hoping that he does find success and is able to help the Texans get their first win in this game. But it's also going to be interesting to see if Liam Cohen is able to get his team to bounce back from last week's loss and get his team, again, back in the right direction. Should be a good game. Again, I have Houston in this one, winning 26-23. This next game is interesting, and I'll share why, even though on paper, not on paper, but just the sound, when you initially hear the matchup, you're like, this is going to be ugly. Is the Green Bay Packers versus the Cleveland Browns. Green Bay is 7.5-point favorites. I heard a stat about the Cleveland Browns defense that was crazy. I heard it today. And they said that in the first two games, Cleveland's defense has allowed less than 400 total yards combined in the two games, which is insane. And they're one of two teams in NFL history, or recorded history, in the Super Bowl era, that has come up with that stat where their defense has allowed 400 yards or less in the first two games, but lost those two games. And I think the other one they mentioned was a Buddy Ryan-led Arizona Cardinals team from 1994. And so Cleveland does have a legitimate defense. Of course, Myles Garrett, he is arguably, some would say, the best defensive player in the league, but he's definitely one of the best, if not the best. And he can get to the quarterback and really cause some mayhem in the backfield there. And so I do think Green Bay wins. And I think a lot of it, like the reason we saw Baltimore just run away with the game against the Browns last week, was because Their offense was just not efficient. It forced the defense to be on the field a lot. And I think that's going to be the same thing here. I don't know. We eventually see a change in quarterback, especially if Joe Flacco struggles once again in this game. But I think that Green Bay, for me, Green Bay has looked like the best team up to this point. I know it's still early. It's only been 2 weeks and 2 games, but Green Bay looks good. So I think they find a way to win. I think they win 27-20 in a low-scoring game because of Cleveland's defense and their ability to keep games close. But I just think at the end, because the offense is struggling so much for the Browns, but the defense just ends up getting fatigued and tired right in the game, and Green Bay is able to take advantage of that and win the game 27-20. Either way, it should be interesting, but I think Green Bay gets off to a 3-0 start and possibly continues to look like the best team in the league to this point. We then have Pittsburgh versus New England. Pittsburgh is a 1.5-point favorite, and I think Aaron Rodgers will have a bounce-back game. It's interesting with him and Russell Wilson, two quarterbacks really where their prime was in yesteryear, have shown flashes of what they look like during those years where they were competing for trying to represent their divisions. For both of them really was the NFC when Aaron Rodgers was with the Packers and Russell Wilson was with the Seahawks, and they were just putting up numbers that were crazy. And I thought those days were possibly over for both of them, but they showed flashes. Aaron Rodgers in week 1 and Russell Wilson in week 2. So we'll see. I think Aaron Rodgers has a bounce back game and is able to put up some good numbers again. I worry about that Pittsburgh defense, which is interesting and strange because that's usually what Pittsburgh is known for. But I think they do just enough to get the job done. They win 30-27. New England, I think they'll end up, as the year progresses, getting better and better. But I also think they're going through some growing pains, especially with a new head coach. So we'll see how this ends up. I can see it going the other way, but I've picked Pittsburgh to win again by the score of 30-27. The last 1 o'clock game is between the Cincinnati Bengals and Minnesota Vikings. This was interesting to choose as well because both starting quarterbacks for each of these teams is out. Joe Burrow for at least 3 months because of the turf toe injury and then it requiring surgery. So they said he's out till at least, I think, mid-December. And I feel for the guy. I know Cincinnati and Kansas City have had their battles, but you always want to face a team at their best because that's when victory is sweetest. And so for Joe Burrow to have another injury like this, I mean, injuries have plagued his career to this point. When he's healthy, he's definitely one of the elite quarterbacks in the league, but he just has a hard time staying healthy. I kind of fault the offensive line. I think maybe they should address that a little bit more because like I said, he has been injured almost every year since he's entered the league. But when he's healthy, he is phenomenal. And he can compete with the best of them, with the Josh Allens, with the Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, and all these other quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert. He's right up there with those quarterbacks when he's healthy. But it's just staying healthy that's tough. And then Minnesota, J.J. McCarthy, he's out for this game. And so I had to choose. It's really the backup quarterbacks. I think Browning versus Wentz, if I remember correctly. I think it's Jake Browning and Carson Wentz. And I'm going with Cincinnati. Browning has had pretty decent success. He has proven that he can win. He showed last week against the Jaguars that he can come in and still help his team win the game. And Carson Wentz, the last time I saw him play a game was in week 18 of last year against the Broncos when he was the backup quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. And that did not go well. That did not look good. And so I know Kevin O'Connell, the Minnesota Vikings head coach, he's like a quarterback whisperer, so maybe he can inspire some greatness out of him that will allow Carson Wentz to look like the He almost won the MVP. It was 2017 before he got injured, and he was playing at a very high level. So maybe we see that Carson Wentz, because Kevin O'Connell is able to inspire that kind of play from him. But just based off the most recent history and remembering that Carson Wentz struggled mightily. Now, I know he went against a Denver defense that was ranked number 1 in so many areas, but still, that did not look good. So I'm going to go with Cincinnati in this game, winning 25-23. Now, next, we go to our 405 slots. Those are the afternoon games. We have Denver versus the Chargers, which is going to be a great game, a great AFC West divisional game. I think the Broncos are going to want to try to bounce back and get back on track. But the Chargers, I think, are also going to be motivated, because if they do win this game, they'll have a 3-game advantage, really, because they'll have beaten every other team in the division once already. They beat Kansas City and Brazil in week 1. This past Monday night, they beat the Las Vegas Raiders. And if they beat the Denver Broncos, that'll be, again, 1 victory over each of those teams. Now, the Chargers are 2.5-point favorites, and I do think they end up winning this game. Their defense has really impressed me. They have shown that they're tough and that it's hard to move the ball on them. So I think their defense is closer to Denver's defense than Denver's offense is close to the Chargers' offense, if that makes sense. So I have the Clippers winning 23-17. I don't think it's a super high-scoring game because those defenses are elite and very good. But I do have the Chargers beating the Broncos and having that 3rd victory over a divisional opponent 3 weeks in a row. Again, the Chiefs week 1, the Raiders week 2. And if they win this game in week 3, it would be a win over the Broncos. The other 405 game is the New Orleans Saints versus the Seattle Seahawks. I honestly did not expect the Seattle Seahawks to play as well as they did against Pittsburgh. I thought they would lose that game, but they proved me wrong. And in this game, they are 7.5-point favorites. New Orleans, Spencer Rattler did all right. He didn't have any eye-popping numbers, but again, I have very little faith in the Saints right now. I think that they lose this game as well. I think they lose it 29-21. It's just hard to see New Orleans, again, doing well this year. And then Seattle is, I don't know. For me, it's kind of hard because you can flip a coin and one day they may look good. The next time they play, they may look terrible. But in this game, I think they'll do well. They'll be able to get the victory over the Saints. We then move to the 425 slot where there's 2 games. The first one is Arizona at San Francisco, where San Francisco is a 1.5 favorite. And I don't know, there's just so many injuries. I think Kyle Shanahan can game plan so that Mac Jones gets another victory. But I think I like Arizona in this game, 28-21. I think they take advantage of the injuries that have plagued the 49ers like 2 years in a row now. This year, Brock Purdy and George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk. And they're missing some key players, and they just seem to have this bad luck run of injuries the past few seasons. Maybe they can get Christian McCaffrey going, and he can help them actually win the game. But I think Arizona does just enough to win, and they win 28-21. The next game in this slot is the Dallas Cowboys versus the Chicago Bears. Boy, was I wrong last week with the Chicago Bears. I thought maybe Ben Johnson would be able to go into Detroit and surprise everyone and get out of there with a victory, but they got smashed. The Bears look like the Bears, man. I have a friend, Gavin, that I mentioned earlier. He's a Bears fan, and he has told me of the misery that has been the past few years where they haven't really done very well. And so I just don't see them beating Dallas. I think Dallas is playing better than a lot of people expected. They had this incredible game this past week against the Giants where it went into overtime, and we got to see Brandon Aubrey hit a 64-yard field goal to send the game into overtime, and then he hit the game-winning field goal from, I think it was 45 yards away. But Dallas's offense looks like it's pretty good, especially Dak Prescott. He seems to be playing as if he never got injured last year, which is good to see. But I have Dallas winning 35-27. And I know a lot of Bears fans were hoping that this year would go differently or start off differently. But I would remind any Bears fans that this is Ben Johnson's first year. I think it's going to take a couple years for him to really integrate his system and his play calling and the winning culture and attitude that he wants instilled there. And I do think you guys will see results. I know we often want to see them right away, but I think a lot of times it takes a couple years to really get that momentum going. But watch out, the NFC North may be the most competitive division here. It already arguably is. The AFC West can make a claim to that as well, I think. But if the Bears can get turned around and headed in the right direction, that division's going to be tough year in and year out. But yes, Dallas over Chicago, even though Chicago's a 1.5 favorite. I don't know how, but they are a 1.5 favorite. I have Dallas winning 35-27. We then have the Sunday night football game, 8:20 p.m. That's Kansas City Chiefs versus the New York Giants. I was impressed with the Giants and how they played because I did not expect that from them. I just have zero faith, or had zero faith in Brian Dable as a head coach for the past couple of years because the trajectory of the team had been going down. But we saw, again, flashes of Russell Wilson from his days in Seattle, where he was considered one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And I'm wondering if we'll see that. Now, I think that Kansas City and Spags, their defense, I don't think they're going to give up 40-some points to, or 400-plus yards to Russell Wilson. But I also think that the New York Giants have a really good pass rush, a really good defensive line. And so I think both defenses are I think it's going to be a defensive battle again. And I think Kansas City does eke out a win, 24-23. And they are 6.5-point favorites. I don't think they cover that 6.5 points spread, but I do think they eke out a win and get a very much needed win this season. I don't know. We'll see what happens regarding Brian Dable as the year progresses. But I would definitely think that he's one of the coaches that has a very hot seat right now. But yes, I have the Chiefs winning this game 24-23. And then Monday night, the Monday Nighter, man. This game I think is going to be epic. It is Monday night at 8:15 p.m. It's the Detroit Lions versus the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore's 5.5-point favorites. And, man, the Detroit Lions just put a beat down on the Chicago Bears this past week. They hung 52 points on their defense. They're not going to be doing that against the Baltimore defense, but because Baltimore and Chicago, those are two different animals. And I'm not just talking about their mascots. Those are two different teams at different tiers right now. But although the score I have, it's I have a high score, but it's not 52. But I have, even though Baltimore's 5.5-point favorites, I have Detroit winning the game 42-40. I don't know, part of me just wants it to be like the game that was between Buffalo and Baltimore in week 1, where it was just an epic game. But that's what I'm expecting, especially if Detroit plays the way they did this past week and Baltimore plays the way we know they can play. Because Baltimore, if you remember, this past week, they hung up 41 points on the Browns. It wasn't until the fourth quarter where most of those points came. But by that time, the Cleveland Browns defense, I think, was wore out because they had been on the field so much and because their offense just couldn't move the ball. But I think it's an epic game. Detroit wins 42-40. And people are going to start talking about how the Lions are back and playing like they're on a mission. And so those are my picks for week 3. We'll see how well or how poorly I do. I said the first 2 weeks have been really subpar, mediocre. I didn't even count to see how I did this past week. I know in the first week I went 8-8. But we'll see how I do this week. But until then, thanks for watching this video. And again, I appreciate you guys and your support. I'm really looking forward to continuing to make this content and put it out to you. And I'm excited that it's football season, probably my favorite sport right now. And so I'm hoping that we have another excellent year in the NFL and in college sports, of course, college football. Looking forward to that as well. But above all, remember that Jesus loves you. Put him first. He is the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, and he's the best thing that could ever happen to you. So if you don't know him, I encourage you, get to know him because he loves you so much, and he's yearning to have a relationship with you. Until next time, my friends, thanks for stopping by Kingdom Driven Sports. Have a blessed day, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye-bye.